I call the meeting of the Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Board of Trustees to order. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, we have some recognition, so if the board would move down front.
This evening, the Board of Trustees and Superintendent Kelly McGovern would like to recognize the following individuals. We would like to take this opportunity to honor the following retirees. First, we would like to honor Joni Smith. She's given 18 years of service to the district as a bus driver. Miss Joni Smith. Next, we would like to honor Miss Julie Wilson. Julie's given 21 years of service to the district as a paraprofessional at East Junior High in Rock Springs Junior High School.
White Mountain? Yes, that's right. Starting in White Mountain. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
And that concludes recognition.
Thank you all. Thank you for learning experience, and I enjoyed it. And good luck to Sweetwater County School District.
Mrs. West, if you would do roll call, please.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mrs. Summers?
Here.
Mr. Mickelson?
Here.
Mr. Batolo?
Here.
Mr. Jackman?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson?
Here.
Chairman Jellicoe?
Here. Item 2B, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment to exclude item number 9, which is an executive session. It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We also have an addendum, so I would ask for a motion to approve the addendum.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Okay. We'll now suspend the regular board meeting and open the public hearing. Is there a motion? I'm sorry? Moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reedy. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. So we are now in a budget hearing. Ms. Carter?
Yes. Good evening, Chair Jellicoe, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent McGovern. I will be reviewing the budget resolution this evening, but there are a couple items I need to note first. One is that 2 documents were distributed for the budget hearing on January 6th, 2022. Today, updates were distributed for that budget resolution and the itemized analysis of all ESSER funds spreadsheet. The reason for the revisions is that on January 6th in the afternoon, WDE returned funds to the CARES ESSER 1 grant number 259. And in order to present the most update and accurate information, it was necessary to adjust the documents for tonight's board meeting. The second note I would like to point out is that the CARES Relief 2 grant, grant number 251, was advertised as Grant Relief 3, but there was a typo and it really is Grant Relief 2 instead of 3. So as we proceed, I will be referring to that as Grant Relief, CARES Relief 2 grant. I would also like to state that the budget resolution tonight identifies many different transactions which have occurred following the board meeting in December and the approval of the ARP implementation plan in December. These transactions can somewhat be a little complicated to look at, and they are very intertwined. So I will be going through some things slowly and trying to answer the questions that you have. But one of the best ways to look at this in terms of some of the grant work that we do is, the way I like to describe it is a domino effect. You know the dominoes when they line them up and make little pretty designs and they hit the one and it goes out, makes things happen? That's in essence what has happened with some of the grant work that we've had to do for tonight's meeting. So as I begin, you will probably hear me refer to different parts that have happened or some of the beginning pieces of the dominoes. So to further explain, I would like to state that the first domino was the board approval of the ARP implementation plan in December. That was pretty much the first domino that started some of the pieces that we needed to have in place to do the budget resolution for tonight. This included the spending plan, the ESSER spreadsheet, which I will be talking to tonight as well after I go through the budget resolution. The second domino was that we received official notice that the district had received additional funds in the CARES Relief 2 grant 251, December 20th. The third domino was that we had to move allowable items for the grant 251 The allowable items that we needed to use were in the CARES Relief Grant 251. No, 259. Sorry, see, even I get confused a little bit. I'll try not to confuse you too much. You will see in the spending plan that you reviewed in December and that we are carrying through to tonight that these items were identified as part of our spending plan. So now that I've explained a couple of the reasons why you received an update today regarding those two items, what I would like to do is walk you through the budget resolution. And Zach, thank you. I will begin with the first grant, 251, which is the CARES Relief Grant number 2, which again was advertised as CARES Relief Grant number 3. There were 2 actions that occurred with this grant. One action happened in October of 2021 that impacts the budget resolution in a different grant, but you need to know what we did and what happened. This grant was awarded to us in fiscal year 21. We were to have all the funds expended by the end of December 30th, 2021. What happened is those expenditures we had to have obligated and in district by December 30th. The state extended that grant in October to us, so it allowed us to finish using the funds of $33,650.08 that we could finish spending out of the allowable amount, $1,541,400. Yes, $541,400. There is no budget increase needed. They were part of the original grant. But what happened was because we got late notification that we could spend those additional funds, and to meet the criteria of spending those funds by the end of December this year, December 30th, 2021, we had to use the CARES ESSER grant, Grant 259, for the allowable purchases. And I'll explain that as I go through. But that is one thing that happened. It didn't impact the funding for the grant, like increase it or anything. It just allowed us to finish spending that grant. The second action, which I call, these are kind of like 2 dominoes that began a whole bunch of things. The second action was actually what you see in the budget resolution. One is the budget resolution for this grant takes a look at a total of $689,745. Yes, I'm not saying my numbers correctly tonight, and I apologize. $689,745. These were additional funds that the state awarded us to the grant 251. So, and part of the reason they did that was because districts throughout the state had not spent all the funds for this one particular grant. So they reallocated funds to the different districts, and our district received additional funds. So the action tonight for the budget resolution is to look at that increase of dollars for that particular grant, which was given to us through an amendment. You can see the items that we identified in the debit column that we moved from the CARES ESSER grant. So you'll see some numbers the same, and I'll point those out to you as we go through. Most of the items that were moved from the CARES ESSER 1 grant and purchased through the CARES Relief Grant 2 included computers, iPads, and UV lights, which were allowable expenses for this particular grant. Moving on to the CARES ESSER 1 259 grant, there were 2 actions that have occurred since the last board meeting. One is we identified allowable expenditures that were allowable in the CARES Relief Grant 2, which is the 251, which I just talked about. So we had to go through the expenditures that we had in the ESSER 1 grant, identify which ones were allowable, and then move them to be funded from the CARES Relief Grant 2. There was the extension, which was the original grant, which was part of the original grant, which was $33,650. And the second part was the amended amount, which was the increase of the $689,744, for a total, which you will see on line 8420, of $723,394. What the second action item was, is that once those were identified and moved, what happened was that the CARES ESSER 1 grant that had already funded and purchased allowable items, those items were no longer in this grant. So it became extra money that we had. But we had already drawn down, and the Wyoming Department of Education had already given us the funds for those particular items. By federal regulation and process, we have to return those funds to WDE if we've drawn them down. Then WDE will put them back into the grant for us. And so what you will see is that on line 8,500, you will see that we returned $723.30, $723,394. Then what happened was last Thursday, WDE returned those funds, which you will see in line 8420, to us in the grant. The items that you see in 1,110, 1,120, and 3,461 are the areas in which we had the expenditures that were moved into the CARES Relief Grant 251. So as you can see, there have been some things that have been moved around. One thing to please note is that as the dominoes are falling, we are doing different pieces of the process. So one thing I will need to make sure that you're aware of is that in February, there will be an additional action item as a budget resolution where we will be bringing to the table the workforce stabilization incentive for $723,394, just to make sure that you're aware. And part of it is we have to do that through an amendment to the grant first, and it has to be approved by WDE. before we can present it to the board. Okay. Those two grants are what I call the current grants. These are the ones that are on the books that we've been using and working through. The next part of the budget resolution is the new grants. Please note that on the budget resolution page that you are seeing before you, the numbers are rounded up. So the numbers are not going to look exactly like, to the penny, what the spreadsheet does. So when I refer to the spreadsheet, please note that these are just rounded up numbers for this portion of the budget review. What you will see is the ESSER 3 ARP grant, $275. And at the board meeting, the board saw this plan as a spending plan in the implementation plan for the ARP. It has not changed. This is what you had seen and looked at for that portion of approval. The next grant I want to point out is the Carissa Gears 2 grant, $276. We were awarded this grant after the board meeting last in December. It is for a total of $178,575. And these funds are set up to support the full-time substitutes, or a portion of them, for next year. It won't cover everything, but it does cover that portion of them. In looking at the additional grants that we have received funding for, ESSER 2, SEA Reserve Funds Extended Learning, these are part, WDE has competitive grants, and these were part of the competitive grant process. These funds are reserved for summer school, Friday school, activities that we will continue doing through next year. We received $187,000 for that particular grant. ESSER 2, SEA Reserve Funds for SEL, which is Social Emotional Learning. We received funds of $180,272. And these go to support counselor professional development for social emotional learning and mental health support for teachers, activities for them to do to help support them through some of what they are feeling with the COVID and for COVID relief. The next grant that I would like to talk to you about is the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. This particular grant is not an ESSER grant, but it does align to the items that we have been talking about through ARP and requested items that were not funded through specifically the ARP grant itself. So, and this isn't the only one, the extended learning and the SEL also are part of those additional pieces. As we listen to what people are needing and wanting to see in the district, we are taking and using additional grant funds or opportunities to fund those experiences. So the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant was written for $869,638, and it will be supporting our new pilot for our Tier 2 reading. It's primarily for, well, it is for literacy, for reading, some reading material for our preschool. It's also, there is also some EL support in this as well. And so that covers the budget resolution component. And now what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time taking and looking at the spreadsheet that goes along with this. These two items will also be in, I do believe it's item 13. I forgot the note on that one. As you go through your agenda. In looking at the spreadsheet, remembering that the spreadsheet is our district's document for transparency on where we are funding and how we are using the funds for all the ESSER funds that the district is receiving. The one thing I'd like to point out is that the total funds remaining, there are 2 different dates on this. Most of the grants you will see we reviewed on January 5th. The one grant, which is the CARES, the 250, oh, where's my numbers? The two, yeah. Sorry. The 259 grant, we revised that portion of the spreadsheet today. And I'll be happy to go through that with you very briefly. If you note on the first page, the 3 grants that are listed there are 0 funds remaining in those grants. In the CARES one, the 259 grant, you will note that some of these items have changed from the December meeting. Primarily, it's in reference to what we took out of the grant to put in, or we moved from the grant to put into the 251, and where we are putting the funds for the workforce stabilization. Now, the workforce stabilization, as I said before, we're pending approval from WDE because we have to do an amendment within the grant for that particular piece. We basically have to move money to the right place is what we're looking at. Everything else within this area is up to date and current, and so that is the one item I wanted to make sure and point out. The other grants we are still in process of using, such as the Carissa Act ESSER 2. What you see there is just updated funds and where we've spent those funds for FY22. ESSER 3 ARP is listed on this again as it was in December, and showing where we will be spending those particular funds. If you continue back through this document, the new grants are also added on. And the CARES Relief Grant 251, for the portion of funds that we were awarded that through an amendment for additional funds, we have kept separate so you can see where we're spending those on this particular spreadsheet. The new award amount for GEARS 2 is on here. The Cell Grant is on here. And then the final portion is, okay. And the Cell Extended Learning Grant. I think I forgot to talk about that one. Apologize. In the budget hearing, there was an ESSER 2 SEA Reserve Funds Extended Learning for $187,000 there. Okay, I hope I went through that slowly enough and explained things well enough. Chair Jellicoe, if there's any questions.
Anyone have questions? Mr. Mickelson.
That was going to be my whole question. How do I turn on my mic? No, I was just wondering, with all of the purchases that we've made, one, have we created any ongoing costs once the grants are gone? And then as a follow-up, with some of the other things that are grant funded, if we find them to be beneficial, are we looking at how to maintain them? Thank you.
Okay. Please.
Chair Jellicoe, if I may, please.
Mr. Mickelson, thank you for the question. A couple of the things that we've done in the district, we would not be able to do without the federal CARES money. Not everything, but some examples include, I think first and foremost would be the virtual school. And so to get the Sweetwater #1 virtual school up and running this year, which Jody Gardner and Debbie Veras have done a wonderful job in doing. We've got close to 100 students that are in there as of today. And I really believe for a lot of those kiddos, we would have lost them along the way. So it's been a very good intervention to support kids that need something a little bit different. So with that, we have the virtual school going for the next several years. And then once that ends, then that will be something that the district will have to look at and analyze the program itself. Is there certain grade levels that are more effective than others? Is it better for secondary, for 7-12? How does it look for the K-6 and the smaller levels? And I think after that time, that would be something that we need to analyze, see what our student achievement is and the amount of enrollment for that. After that time, it would be a sustainable cost for the district itself. I think one of the other examples too is the ESSER 3 or the American Rescue Plan funds that that this board approved for us at the last meeting. And I know Nicole Bolton talked about there were some positions in there that the district that we really need to help move us out of the pandemic, but also support our kids in the best way that we can. And some of those positions included graduation coaches, English language teachers, intervention teachers, and then also there were full-time substitutes that we wanted to offer, one for each one of our schools. We hear what our teachers are asking for, what our principals are asking for. So the plan for some of those, I believe the full-time subs are going to be a hit. And so that would, after the grant is expended, I do think that would become an ongoing cost for the district. We'll have to see what things are like in the environment of the district once the pandemic subsides and evaluate that as well. As far as the teaching positions, though, I believe we have a good plan for those, with the idea that when we start that first year, we need the EL positions and the intervention. And then as it's actually the pipeline for teacher recruitment, because after that first year is over, we know that we naturally lose teachers through retirements, through natural attrition. And so the idea there is to have that recruiting tool with those teachers come into some of those positions. So as they move into a regular district funded position, then we absorb that through the grant. That way we don't find ourselves in a position where staff get hurt and we need to downsize on staff. And if there's anything else you'd like information for, I'm happy to help you.
Other questions? Okay, it looks like we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have received no written public comment on this portion of the meeting. Is there any in-person public comment regarding the public hearing? Any in-person public comment regarding the public hearing? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene the board meeting. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Reedy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are now back in the regular board meeting. Moving on to the superintendent report, 7A, the course proposals. Ms. Garner.
Good evening, Chair Jellicoe and trustees. Tonight, the Curriculum and Instruction Department is seeking your approval on new courses for the 2022-2023 school year. As you may recall, the new course proposal process is governed under Board Policy IF. This year, our timeline process looked like this. In October, the district department chairs met with me and my department to review the process. They each went back to their departments and decided whether or not they were interested in submitting a written recommendation for a new course or changes or updates to current courses. Departments who created proposals then had discussions with their building principals, and together they submitted proposals to my department. In November, the proposals were considered by my team after carefully studying their rationale and their purpose. The proposal included a course description, noted prerequisites. They noted Wyoming content and performance standards, materials and resources, and a course outline. My team carefully considers how the proposals comply with policy, whether or not they're in the best interest of students, the impact they have on Hathaway course requirements, what resources will be required for the course, budget implications, facility requirements, as well as the need for staffing and maintaining longevity for the course. So in December, courses that were preliminarily approved by my team were then presented to myself, Human Resource Director Mrs. Bolton, Superintendent McGovern, our Special Education Director Mrs. Arnoldi, Grant Coordinator Linda Carter, and Chief Information Officer Stephanie Tolman, as well as the secondary administrators. The district department chair or designated representative delivered these presentations to describe and explain the new course proposals from their department. This gave us all an opportunity to hear the rationale and ask follow-up questions. Following the presentations, final decisions are made, and the list you see tonight are those courses that are being recommended for your approval. Zach, you have that list? Okay. So looking over this list, I'm going to highlight a few things on here. You'll see the following proposed changes. First of all, we need to create a few computer science courses that will comply with the new Wyoming computer science content and performance standards. With this, we'll be creating a new pathway, starting in the junior high and continuing through high school. You might notice that the courses will begin with an intro to computer science and progress into cybersecurity and app development. The junior high welding would like to expand their curriculum to include some fabrication work. Also at the junior high, printmaking is a name change that will also include stamp making. So it's going to be printmaking and stamp making, mainly for clarity for students. The junior high is also wanting to add additional fitness opportunities by creating a junior play fit course. The welding courses at the high school are being designed so that students are able to earn college credit and will match the WWCC curriculum. Several CTE courses are proposed to change from year-long courses to semester courses in order to be able to complete programs of study and allow students the opportunity to complete certifications needed in their pathway. Other CTE proposals being made were to reorganize the order of the courses to align with certification opportunities and provide opportunities for job shadowing. A new math course called Integrated Math is being proposed to bridge students from geometry to Algebra 2. The math department is trying to set students up for success with this course so that students whose skills may be a little behind will be able to take a course that will strengthen their math skills before taking Algebra 2. This will help students be more successful on the ACT, give another course option to meet the 4-course math requirement, as well as strengthening their math skills. Upon your approval of this math course, we will pursue Hathaway approval. The science team from the high school would like to they shared strong reasons for changing the order of the freshman and sophomore courses. They brought this to us last year, and this year we gave them new resources. We were going through the resource adoption, and so we did not look at this last year, but now they did bring it back. And after listening to their reasoning, we are supporting the change of freshmen taking biology now for this next year and sophomores taking physical science. And lastly, Fine and Performing Arts had two simple changes. One was to eliminate the course offering of Intro to Art, which is basically covered before the students get to high school, and so instead we'll continue offering Drawing 1. They would also like to change the course prerequisites to successful completion instead of what it currently says, which is C or better. So if you will, my department's seeking your approval on these proposed changes tonight.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7B, the facility plan. Mr. Celeroli.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent McGovern. Did everybody get a copy? Everybody review it? Okay. Man, it's nice national finals. Let's see if you reviewed it. Any questions, we'll move on. Okay. Well, here's a list of all the projects that came up. What I did this year, I asked all the principals, building administrators to send me emails with lists of projects that they would like to see added to this. Because this year, working with Linda, with the CTE program, one of the things that we have happen quite often is they order new equipment and it's not replacement equipment. If it's replacement equipment, I get to, I can install it under major maintenance. If it's additional equipment, the building has to come up with the money. And what happens is they were just spending the money and getting the equipment that had come in, and we didn't have the money to install it. We tried to find the money, to get it installed, but it became an issue. So I asked for projects like that and, kind of put things on this list so that we can see how long, kind of budget it. So I know in the next 2 years, 3 years, that these projects can at least be financed one way or the other. What I try to do too is if you look on the, where it has the sources, income source, and that would be major maintenance. We have security funds, we have district funds. Sometimes on the district funds, it's CapCon dollars. And CapCon dollars in my case is when I get with Scott and we look at projects for the upcoming 5-year plan. You'll hear, talk about a 5-year plan. It's something that's on that plan and we have budgeted money for it. And I keep it discretionary for unencumbered, unanticipated funding that sometimes we can go into. Or when I get the emails, I'll send them back and tell the principals that they have to get with Scott when they do their budget plan for their 5-year plan and budget some of these things into their school budget. So these are estimates. I tried to carry these estimates. We figure, especially in construction, 7% a year increase. And so some of the projects we get started in 1 year, we don't finish till the following year. Sometimes it takes longer than that. So that's why you'll see the same project going out from 21 to, well, they were 21, now they're 22, 23, and 24. So I tried to keep it pretty simple this year. The state will see the same items, the same projects. The only difference in their list is when the list that they get will only be major maintenance dollars, because that's the only thing that concerns them. They don't really worry about what the district is paying for. They only care about what I'm taking out of major maintenance money. And usually with them, I always give them a 5-year plan. So here locally, I try to stick 2-3 years. And in the past, I've given the state a 5-year plan. So a lot of times it's redundant for them. And it kind of saves me some headache trying to go through everything, because if I haven't finished what's already on the plan, unless it's an emergency, I don't want to keep adding to it because it's unrealistic that we're ever going to get to it. So if you're looking at the plans now and you see something on there that you have any questions with, be more than happy to answer.
Any questions? Mr. Batolo.
Dan, I saw on there generators
Yes.
for quite a few of our schools. Is that at every school?
Yeah, actually, originally, we talked about only a few of the schools in key locations. But for numerous reasons. One, because the bids have been coming in pretty good and doing some of this work in-house. We figured out ways to lower the cost. You know, it's been Superintendent McGovern's, her goal really is to, I mean, let's face it, in Wyoming especially, our schools are the centers of communities. If you have a disaster, most people, I mean, it's really the best place for people to gather. We have kitchens at every school. We have more than enough facilities, you know, restrooms, things like that. So it makes sense really to put our schools on some sort of a backup generator. What we've gone with is like this building, facilities and transportation are on backup generators. They're gas fired, natural gas. In all my years of doing even emergency planning and preparation, I've never seen natural gas disrupted. And if natural gas is disrupted, usually you can make a couple phone calls and within hours you have a compressed natural gas truck at your site feeding you natural gas. It's a lot handier to use. It's a lot cleaner to burn. And also when we use it, we can calculate and get some rebates back from Rocky Mountain Power. So natural gas has been the choice. And after reviewing what the costs have been coming in, talking with Mrs. McGovern, it was I just would advise that we figure on putting generators at every school towards the end of 5 years. And then should, God forbid, we have a disaster, we're ready. Okay.
Other questions? Mr. Mickelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I actually just had a comment. If you can promise no one will look for 3 to 4 days, I can get rid of that greenhouse for way less than $225.
Yeah, like I said, some of these were estimates, and you know, when I put estimates down on some of these, I do. You know, if they come in under, that's kind of like a profit, except I can't spend the profit. It doesn't go into our bank account, but I get to finance other projects with it. So when I'm doing these, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to get to do them, and figuring it on the good end, 7%. I've had phone calls just the other day from Cheyenne. Laramie One called me up, and their facility superintendent. He asked me, you know, have I been seeing prices just skyrocket? Because over on that end of state, which I'm kind of surprised, but maybe not with all the construction in Denver, it's gotten so competitive with material. They're seeing prices of over 100% increase. So, you know, it's a guess. While I'm here, can I kind of just give an update on satellite?
Please.
Okay, because I
Please,
didn't see any
yes.
other place on here. So
And Walnut as well,
Walnut.
Yeah,
Okay, let's start with satellite.
okay.
Satellite actually went really well. We were waiting for the TCO. The TCO was not going to be given unless we had CenturyLink line proven to the elevator. All the buildings that we have and all the buildings that have elevators, none of them have been built under the current code. The current code says that if you can have the phone line there, you can't accept it. They won't accept a cellular line. Actually, it's our local that won't accept cellular because it's not very reliable. And if you don't have a landline to your phone, to your elevator, they won't even turn over the keys to you. So I was thinking clear up until 3 days before the New Year's holiday that we would at least have somebody get in the elevator. You know, we can follow them up through the steps and make sure. And the fire marshal was okay with that until we start looking and nobody had a key. When we called up the elevator folks, they will not. They refused to turn over the key to us because we did not have a phone line that actually was proven to work. We had the phone lines on the property, but they hadn't checked them. So we finally talked them into it, and they came up $9,000 later. They approved the line after about 40 minutes, and we were set, ready to go for the opening day. The only issue that we have, and we have to have a fire watch, and I know the board was alerted that we had a fire watch. For those of you in the audience who don't know what a fire watch is, we do them quite often. Whenever we have a fire system, one of the fire alarms, if it has an error code or something shows up where for some reason we don't think it's reliable, it's not ringing through, We actually have to hire somebody, in this case, GHFIP. So they provided 2 people to provide fire walks every hour. They have to sign off on every hour. They can only do that particular task. They cannot do anything else. So you can't have a custodian at the end of an hour walk the building. That doesn't work. You have to have some person there, and they have to be there the entire time that students are in the building. So right now we're operating under a fire watch. One of the issues is there's a card in there that is called the Annunciator card. The Annunciator card is when you in a building and somebody somebody pulls a fire alarm, you have that voiceover that says, this is a fire, exit your nearest exit, your horns, your anything that's audio runs through this little card, and it burnt up. They have no idea why it burnt up, but we can't use it. And trying to get one here has been a nightmare, which we're finding out more and more on. Boiler parts, boilers for the pool, getting parts here is almost impossible. It just takes forever. So they allowed us from the state. Mark Young is the fire chief or the fire marshal, assistant fire marshal for the state of Wyoming. He has allowed us to run the school for 90 days under a fire watch. And if the part still hasn't come in, they will review it for another 90 days. It's not like they're going to throw us out of the building. They understand that the parts are difficult to get. Other than that, it was really nice as someone who has struggled with the last 2 years of getting this thing, getting what we deserve to get, what we paid for. I can tell you this, the first time you hear kids who don't know who you are walk past you and you overhear their conversation saying how nice that building was, 80% of everything that was ticking me off was gone because those kids were actually happy. And we don't get very many compliments from kids. I mean, whether they think it or not, it's like you go home, you do something for your kids. They go, hey, gee, thanks, Mom and Dad. That was great. I mean, it's like they expect you to do it for them. But it was really, really nice to hear the sidebar conversations. Today I was there and they had a student in there and one gal looked at the other and she says, have you seen this library yet? First of all, I was heartwarmed to hear her call it a library, not a media center. And the girl said, no. She goes, oh, it's beautiful. That was like, I mean, it doesn't matter what anybody else says after that. When you get validation from those kids, I mean, that is just absolutely the best. So the school's up, it's running, kids are in there. We're going to have a meeting this Thursday, walk and talk about some of the outside issues that we have. They won't affect anything as far as the school operation. So I think we're about to close this one out. And when we have the open house there, you guys are going to, it doesn't matter what you say to me now because the kids have already validated. So, no. Walnut, Sunday after New Year's, Mark called me, said he was on his way over to Walnut Elementary because they had a flow control. Flow controls are little switches that we put on fire sprinkler systems. Somebody, Sherry's picking me up. It's what we put these flow controls on fire lines. So that if a sprinkler head goes off, we know about it pretty quick because the flow starts going, a switch makes, and it notifies the fire department who in turn call us. Well, by the time Mark got there, some had to be at least, half hour or so. Within a half hour's time at 55 PSI on a 2-inch line, you get an awful lot of water. And the water was leaking from above the ceilings up by the mechanical room. So needless to say, it took down most of the ceilings in the central part of the school. By the time I got there, Nicole was there. Thank you. She had coffee for me, which was nice. And then Kelly showed up. Mark was already on his way to, getting people coming in. I already notified the state of Wyoming. I woke up Mr. Lance Johnson, told him what we had and that I needed some resources. If you remember when Overland, we had that flood in Overland, the state changed the rule based on that flood. And so I quickly reminded Lance that Jerry Vincent, the new director, had the authority to approve up to $500,000 until our insurance kicked in. So from the minute I stepped on the site, we were covered with major maintenance money, and the repairs and the drying out and everything else has already begun. I was there today. Looks pretty good. We've got some work to do. We're trying to work as hard as we can and to get the students and the teachers back in that school. So I'm hoping that if the material comes in when it's supposed to come in, we can get them in there pretty quick. If not, we will keep the board, everybody apprised as to, where we're at, and, just let you know. But we're trying, on a weekly basis, we'll keep, Kelly informed so that she can keep you guys informed as to where we're at. But like I said, Mark is doing a pretty good job of I kind of let him go on that job, and he's been doing really well with it. And so we'll get in there sooner than later, I'm sure.
Any questions? I want to take an opportunity to clarify some rumors.
Oh, you bet.
The rumor mill in Rock Springs is up and running. Apparently, there are rumors out there that the district intentionally flooded the building. And that we are taking this opportunity to close Walnut. Neither of those are true. We had an opportunity 2 years ago when we consolidated the district to look at Walnut, and we chose to keep a building on that side of the city open for a reason. That has not changed. Okay, those rumors are absolutely false. Our intention is, as soon as the repairs are completed, is those students and staff will be back in that building. So, and actually, I think we have some renovations for that building this summer due to the flooding situation. Some of those repairs will include those renovations, so they'll just be ahead of schedule.
Well, and actually, Madam Chair, on your board packet tonight is approvals for putting chillers in that building. So, I mean, if that were the case, we certainly wouldn't go through, close to $1 million expense.
Correct.
That's a lot of money to put on a building.
So I just want to take this opportunity to clarify those rumors right now.
Yeah,
So-
very good.
So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, item number 8 is communications and correspondence or the public comment. If a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee in order to protect the employee's rights to privacy and due process, the board will only hear those complaints or charges in closed session. The board encourages concerned individuals to file complaints using the appropriate district complaint procedure and appropriate forms, which can be obtained from the district's website. As per policies B, DDH, and KD, please limit your comments to the board to one time. If your comments have been previously submitted in writing, please refrain from addressing the board a second time. Policies B, DDH, and KD continue to state, questions asked by the public shall, when possible, be answered immediately by the chairman or referred to staff members present for reply. Questions requiring investigations shall be referred to the board or administrative staff for consideration and later response. Before we go into the communications portion, I do want to address some comments that were made at the last board meeting regarding the vaccine and mask mandate at our Head Start buildings. We said at that time that legal things could happen that would postpone that or put it on hold, and that is exactly what has happened. There is an injunction against that mandate for Head Start staff to receive the vaccine, and for our students to be masked, as well as staff. There is an injunction, and so that whole directive is on hold. We will follow the law, and so those things will not take place at the end of January as they were scheduled to do so. So we will just keep our eye on what's happening in the legal realm. Okay, we have one public comment. Let me find it. One public comment from Brian Redmond, who is a staff member. On January 16th, 17th, and 18th, Rock Springs High School is hosting the All-State Music Honor Groups and Professional Conference. This event will bring approximately 600 students and teachers to Rock Springs High School and will feature concerts and professional development opportunities for music staff. If any of you are interested in attending or visiting the conference, please let me know and I will make the appropriate arrangements for you to join us. That is the only written public comment. Okay, is there any in-person public comment?
I'm Marty Albert. I teach at Sage, and as usual, I only speak for myself. I read online that this is School Board Month, appreciation, recognition, something or other. And I just wanted to say thank you to our board. It's been a tough couple years, and I appreciate all the work you have done for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 10, the treasurer's report. Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the month of December 2021, the general fund, we started with $23,245,727, and we finished with $21,495,935. In the school lunch program, we began with $1,280,912, and we finished with $1,317,084. And in the Head Start, we started with $133,898.95, and we finished with $90,017.55. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Jackman. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 11, the warrants. Again, Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Warrants from November 11th, 2021 to January 5th, 2022. Check numbers 148405 through 148892, totaling $5,261,568.83, and associated bank transfers.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved by Mrs. Summers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Batolo. Discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Thompson.
I do have a conflict to declare on 00148633.
Thank you. Mr. Batolo?
Madam Chair, I also have a conflict. It's $262, I believe.
Okay, with those two declarations, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion unless members of the board request specific items to be held and discussed separately and/or removed from this section. Minutes. 12A, approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 regular meeting. 12B, approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 executive session. Finance. 12C, approval of the resolution to amend the 2021-2022 budget. 12D, approval of the official bond and oath for the school district treasurer. Curriculum. 12E, approval of the course name changes and new course proposals for 2022-2023. General board business. 12F, approval of the Head Start 2021 to 2022 self-assessment. 12G, approval of the Head Start 2021-2022 Community Needs Assessment Annual Update. Facilities. 12H, approval of the local and state facility plan for 2022-2023. Hearing no items held, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We have an addendum. The addendum, item 1, personnel, Jennifer Anderson, special education teacher at Rock Springs High School, has submitted her letter of resignation effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Recommend acceptance. And number 2, facilities, recommendation to approve TK Elevator Corporation in the total amount of $187,653.97 for repairs, refurbishment, and replacement of old equipment to the Rock Springs High School main freight elevator located in the nutrition services area of the school, and the replacement of safety controls in the Rock Springs High School auditorium stage lift. Sole source will be funded through major maintenance funds. Is there a motion to approve the addendum?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 13, the Workforce Stabilization Incentive. Do we have anyone speaking to that? Okay, Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board Trustees, Superintendent McGovern. The item before you is a one-time payout for workforce stabilization. And the formula for this is similar to what we've done before, where we have a set dollar amount per person and then an additional amount depending upon how many years of service you've had with the district. The funding for these, as Linda alluded to, come in, there's 3 buckets, if you will. There's the new ARP money, about $650,000, I think it was. And then there's the money that was freed up by virtue of the state giving us that $689,000. That amount that we're anticipating to be able to use for that is a little over $723,000. So you've got the $650,000 to 723, and then if there's any funds left over from the health and safety incentive, we would like to sweep those in as well to that pocket of money. Rough estimates, I'm thinking between 1.3 and 1.5, somewhere depending upon how many people take that health and safety incentive would be our total pool of money to be able to use for that. And so what we'll do is once the health and safety has been finalized, we know how much money we can sweep, then we'll figure out what the value of years of service is worth over and above that 1,000, and then just play with that depending upon our demographics and come to as close to that target amount as we possibly can. To be eligible for that, you have to be full-time or part-time as of the end of the year, end of December 31st. You've had to have worked your first day before that time as well. And you've had to work through February 22nd without a break in service. And that February 22nd for us is a drop deadline date where we can make changes to the payroll and still make the run and get everything to the bank. So that's about as late as we can go. As I mentioned before, it'll be based on $1,000 per person plus an additional amount that will be determined in February. And along with that, since we have those 3 buckets of money, you'll also see a budget hearing in February to put that budget money where we need it to be able to spend it for this workforce stabilization incentive. Long-term subs serving in a full-time classroom teaching position are also eligible to the tune of $500, and they're pretty much the same requirements as they're noted above. Part-time subs, long-term subs not serving in a full-time classroom teaching position, and temporary employees would not be eligible for this incentive.
Any questions? The the vaccine incentive that we had ends Friday, is that correct? January 14th
Friday at 4.
at 4. Okay, just a reminder to staff that that's the end of that particular incentive. So anything that's not spent in that bucket right now is what you're talking about will carry over into that. That's that third bucket, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve a one-time workforce stabilization incentive for eligible employees of the district?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 14, general board business. Approval of policy GDBB, which is the non-exempt employee overtime and compensatory time off. 14B, approval of policy JEC, school admissions. 14C, approval of policy JEB, the entrance age and readiness assessment. 14D, approval of policy JEA, compulsory attendance ages. And 14E, approval of policy KH, public gifts to schools. Is there a motion to approve those 5 policies?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mickelson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. COVID-19 update. Mrs. McGovern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real quick update. The last time we shared out on December 9th, we had 30 new positive cases. As of today, we have 27 new positives. Our stay-at-home quarantines in December 9th was 105, and as of today, that is 88 that we have.
Any questions? So far, we have not seen any kind of a surge.
We have not. And one thing I wanted to double check with the board, is the update to be every 2 weeks still to be shared out publicly with our community? Or would you like to change the time frame? What is the?
Any thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Thompson?
I am still getting a lot of questions on this. So I would prefer, if it's not too much of an inconvenience, to still do the every 2 weeks, just because I get a lot of questions on this. And so if I have the data, I can just look at it and say, this is where we're at. And if I don't have it, then I'm left wondering, and then I have to ask you for it. So that's just what my opinion is.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Mickelson?
I would really, at this point, be comfortable with monthly, although I hear what you're saying, Stephanie. Just due to the length of time, and you could just refer and say, you know, here's where you can get last month's data. If there's a surge or a significant change, the district will notify you. I think would be a really nice way to thread that, so that, and I certainly for my own personal needs, I'd be comfortable with that. Thank you.
So do you have a preference as far as 2 weeks or monthly? Anyone? Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think that's probably what I'm most questioned about in the 2 weeks. I don't know how much time it takes you to put that together, Superintendent McGovern. I mean, if it's taking you 10 hours a week to put that together, we can adjust it. But if it's,
No,
yeah,
no, it's really at the pleasure of the board.
okay.
I really think that in light of the surge that's going on nationwide at this point, we're not seeing it, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. So I think let's continue with the 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the board self-evaluation, 16A, meeting responsibilities. These are the categories. Number one, all duties imposed upon the board are performed at a public board meeting. 2, the board refrains from misuse of the executive session provisions as defined by the open meetings law. 3, the board establishes through policy the operational procedures for meetings. 4, the board chairman, in consultation with the superintendent, develops the meeting agenda. 5, the board chairman ensures that the time spent on each agenda item is appropriate in terms of its importance. 6, the board identifies for the superintendent the information needed for decision-making. 7, board members receive their agenda materials in adequate time for study before scheduled board meetings. 8, the board comes to meetings prepared to focus on the issues on the agenda and keeps comments relevant and brief. 9, during the board meetings, the board is polite, listens carefully, and is respectful of each other and school personnel. And I don't know why we haven't caught this before, but item number 10 is the same as number 8. And number 11, the board has established procedures for taking public input at a meeting and adheres to them. Anyone like to start?
I'll go. Madam Chair, I guess I'll go.
Mrs. Thompson?
Okay, so for me, I have the first 7. I gave us scores on that. 8, 9, and then 11. I put us at 3s. I feel like we're doing better at it, but we can improve. I guess that's all I have for that.
So would you say about a 3.75 as a
Yeah,
as a cumulative?
3.75 as a cumulative.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also 3.75, literally identical to Ms. Thompson's.
Okay, thank you. We just want to keep going down the row. Mr. Vitolo?
At the risk of redundancy, I was going to rate 3.75 also.
Thank you. Mr. Mickelson?
Y'all make me feel like a really tough grader, like one of those teachers that you just know is going to have a curve. Other than number 7, where I said 4, and I very much appreciate Superintendent McGovern and her team working to get us the materials more quickly than we used to. It does not maybe seem like a lot, but it is certainly helpful for me. And then the rest of them, you know, I think we do those things at like a 3. I'm not convinced we're what is it? You're at below basic, proficient. I think we're proficient, but not exceeding expectations, right? So that's where I was at.
Mrs. Summers?
I'm going to concur with the other board members prior to Mr. Mickelson. And I just had a comment on number 11. I think sometimes it's difficult to adhere to established procedures, and maybe we could do better at that for taking public input.
Mr. Reedy?
3.75.
Okay, and I would concur with the 3.75. I think number 11, sometimes it depends on the situation. I'm an advocate for allowing public input at meetings whenever possible, and we have not had occasion as yet in the past year to have to limit the public comment. That is in our policies. If we were to have a full house and a real hot topic, let's put it that way, we do have provisions where we can have a time limit for those speaking and still allow people to voice their opinions. So I think I'm a 3.75 as well. Okay, item 16B. Okay. Administrative input on instruction responsibilities. I took the liberty of pulling the, what we did in September it was, and I looked at the average and we are about a 3.0 as a board. Our cumulative score was about a 3.0. And looking at the administrative team and their comments, their score, I believe, was about a 3.28 for an overall average score. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read the comments yet. Have you had an opportunity to read the comments? How do you want to handle that? Anyone have any comments about it, or? Mr. Batolo?
I just think we need to thank people for giving their input and
Okay.
appreciate the feedback.
Okay. And I would concur with that. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, and some of the comments are quite detailed and stuff, so we do appreciate that feedback. I think sometimes we can have one perspective, and it's always good to have a different perspective sometimes. But I do note that I think looking at our scores actually ended up being a little lower than their scores. Mr. Mickelson.
I do have one question, and it's on number 3. The board provides alternative instructional programs for non-traditional students. What does that mean? Right? Because we have Black Butte, we have the alternative diploma track, and we have the diploma track. Is that non-traditional students, or do they mean like helping ESL students? Like what, how is that defined, I guess? Because I feel, given the programs that we have, that that's actually an area that the district and the board have put a lot of energy in and really excelled in. And so I was a little curious about why it was scored low. And then I thought, well, maybe the question's ambiguous.
Just the question's it has a different meaning to them than it does to us, perhaps?
Madam Chair, I would say yes. And it's not defined anywhere in the self-evaluation for what alternative instructional programs, what the definition would be.
Any other comments? Okay, so next month, we are going to be looking at community relations responsibilities. And so it's my understanding now that the administrative team will be giving us their comments on that category moving forward. It's just that we wanted to go back and get their feedback on the instructional responsibilities that was done so much earlier in the year. So are we good with that? Sure. Okay. Yes, that's the February. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good of the order, item number 17. Oh, one other thing. We talked a little bit, and I've talked to some of you about it, the Payne book, Emotional Poverty, where the staff had the professional development last Friday. You have books in front of you. We talked about last month maybe having a book study. And so this seemed to pop up, and since it is being so heavily used in the district, I thought it might be a good idea for us. I sent out an email to that effect. I didn't get much feedback, but is everybody on board as far as doing this as a book study? And so as Mrs. Thompson and I were talking, maybe the first 2 chapters, and we'll have a brief discussion about those at the next board meeting. We'll kind of divide it up into 2 chapters a month for us. Does that sound doable? Do I get a thumbs up? Thumbs up? Okay. Okay, so we'll plan on that, and we'll just include just a brief discussion of those first 2 chapters, and then we'll divvy it up from there. But for the next board meeting as part of this as well. That'll be some of the professional development that we're trying to do as a board. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 17, the good of the order. Anyone?
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Thompson?
So as the Head Start liaison, I've been, as you can imagine, pretty busy helping them out with everything that's been going on. As you said earlier in the meeting, we did kind of see a little bit of a reprieve and some good information as far as the courts putting kind of a freeze on that mandate. However, I still took the liberty to write on behalf of Head Start, not only to the Head Start National, but to the governor, Mark Gordon, as well. I'm just kind of pleading our case, asking for his support, and asking him to, at that time, Texas had filed a lawsuit as for Head Start to stop putting in the vaccine and mask mandates. I just asked him to support that lawsuit, but then the courts had another idea in mind. So that's still put on hold. I did receive correspondence from him saying that he would send it to his policy committee, and they are very aware of the situation and are very supportive of that. So that's what I have as far as Head Start.
Thank you. Anyone else? This is a busy time for the School Boards Association. They have board development workshops on Saturday, January 15th in Riverton, and Saturday, January 29th in Casper. If you're able to attend either of those, if you'll contact Mrs. West and she'll make those reservations. There's a virtual meeting for chairs and vice chairs and anybody else that wants to on Saturday, February 5th. We also need to register for that, so if you'll contact Mrs. West. And then last but not least, the legislative session begins, I believe it is on February 14th. It's the 20-day session this year, so it starts on February 14th and goes through March 11th. School Boards Association will host their legislative forum at Little America President's Weekend, which is the Sunday and Monday of February 20th and 21st at Little America in Cheyenne. So if you're interested in that, we can make reservations for that as well. I want to thank the administrative team for their input on the board evaluation as well, and thank the staff for everything they're doing. I think we've gotten off to in spite of the flood, in spite of the flood at Walnut, things seem to have gone well. Thank the staff at Desert View for their flexibility in allowing Walnut students and staff to join them for a limited time, and thank the Walnut staff for their flexibility in moving over to Desert View. So it's been an interesting week, and thank all the staff for their flexibility and just how they handle their students, the caring and commitment they have to their students. And hopefully everybody got a nice rest at Christmas and has come back revived a little bit. I know there was a lot of people were just tired prior to the vacation. So people hopefully came back very rested, and thank you for all that you do. Any other further good of the order? Okay, item number 18, new business. Item 18A, the board committee assignments. They're in your packet. They are the same as last year. I did not make any changes. 18B, board information, policy JEB-R, the kindergarten readiness assessment. 18C, board information, policy KH-E, the public gift to public schools. 18D, the vacancy notice as of January 4th, 2022. 18E, the calendar for the months of January, February, March, and April 2022. 18F, December 2021 Head Start Governing Board and Policy Council monthly report. Item 19 is an executive session for the discussion of legal and personnel matters. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are now in executive session, again, for the purpose of legal and personnel matters. I do not anticipate any action upon our return. I would entertain a motion to return from executive session. It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Was it Jackman? Mr. Jackman? Okay, second? Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We are adjourned.